險時刻警惕。白皮書嘅發布，更係對出賣國家同埋香港特區嘅叛徒作出最嚴正嘅警告。背叛國家同埋香港特區嘅黎智英，昨日被法庭重判入獄20年，刑期對勾結外部勢力危害國家安全嘅歹毒圖謀發出咗嚴厲警告。黎智英罪行滔天，惡貫滿盈，被重判入獄20年，彰顯法治，伸張正義。黎智英長期利用《蘋果日報》荼毒市民，煽動仇恨，歪曲事實，蓄意製造社會對立，美化暴力，公然乞求外部勢力制裁中國、制裁香港特區，犧牲人民福祉，賣國禍港，損害國家同埋香港特區利益，罪證累累，罪有應得。法庭早前頒下嘅裁決，清楚指出黎智英係案中嘅主腦，控制同埋利用《蘋果日報》荼毒社會，勾結外國勢力，乞求對中國同埋香港特區實施制裁同埋採取敵對行動。黎智英嘅歹毒圖謀跨越香港國安法實施前後，目的係勾結外部勢力，損害中國同埋香港特區利益，損害市民嘅利益，無恥咁充當外部勢力嘅爪牙，危害國家安全。法庭依法對黎智英同埋各個被告作出重判，彰顯咗法治同埋公義。然而，香港嘅社會已經承受咗沉重嘅代價。喺黎智英同埋佢所操控嘅《蘋果日報》嘅荼毒之下，部分市民，尤其係青年人，被誤導而違反法律，變得激進暴戾。喺黑暴期間，大肆破壞公共設施，衝擊政府大樓、立法會同埋中央駐港機構，投擲汽油彈，大肆縱火，更加放火燒人，更加有年輕人偷運真槍，製造炸彈，策劃恐怖活動，幸得警方及早搗破，先至可以避免咗大量人命傷亡。呢啲被煽動嘅人，包括年輕人，好多都因為犯法而要坐監。截至去年底，有2400多人因為黑暴期間所犯嘅各種罪行，要承擔法律後果。可見黎智英團伙同埋《蘋果日報》嘅惡貫滿盈。香港特區政府已經就《基本法》第23條完成本地立法，制定咗《維護國家安全條例》。香港國安法同《維護國家安全條例》渾然一體，築起維護國家安全嘅法律屏障。特區會堅定不移維護國家安全，保障香港市民嘅合法權益，全力防範、制止同埋懲治危害國家安全嘅行為同埋活動，履行天經地義嘅維護國家安全責任。多謝大家。
好，而家落嚟傳媒提問時間啦。咁有意提問嘅傳媒咧，舉手示意啦，嗌到你之後講出嚟機構名稱同埋提問不對兩個問題嘅。第一位，不如左手邊最尾嗰行白色衫嘅女記者，唔該。
早晨，特首，星島日報㗎。首先咧，想問翻咧，政府應急住宿安排工作組啦，已經咧就住宏福苑長遠安置方案咧，收集咗90%居民嘅意見，預計能唔能夠喺農曆年之前公佈一個結果啦？目前較為傾向邊啲方案？政府又會唔會考慮用公帑買業權？點樣去平衡使用公帑嘅公平性咧？其次就想問翻長和旗下巴拿馬港口公司手上面嗰份合同咧，就被巴拿馬最高法院判令違憲，中央政府同特區政府都發表咗聲明表示不滿嘅啦。但係巴拿馬當局都仲係未有反應，特區政府會點睇呢？會唔會考慮約見更多嘅商界、本港嘅商界，呼籲佢哋謹慎投資呢？唔該。
政府十分重視大埔宏福苑居民嘅長遠住宿安排，持續為受影響嘅家庭提供適切嘅協助。長遠住宿安排所涉及嘅問題係複雜嘅，每戶都有個別嘅情況同埋需要，而社會上邊亦都意見紛紜。 政府會小心處理，平衡各方面嘅意見。政府亦都會要兼顧一啲現實嘅問題，例如公共資源嘅適當運用、公帑嘅投入、住屋資源嘅分配、相關嘅法律、業權等責任同埋問題。政府亦都要妥善咁做好過渡性安排。當然時間上邊係要盡快做，越早讓受影響嘅家庭可以作出決定係越好嘅。財政司副司長領導嘅應急住宿安排工作組一直從以下幾個方向去盡快制定具體方案。第一，既考慮受影響家庭嘅意願，亦都要兼顧善用資源，要情理法兼備。第二，提供多元嘅選項，包括居屋、綠置居以及房協單位，讓居民有得揀。第三，因應居民嘅意願，提供大埔園區或者跨區嘅居住安排。工作組透過一戶一社工嘅問卷，收集咗受影響業主嘅初步意願。目前業主嘅回覆已經係大致收齊。工作組正經係密鑼緊鼓，歸納同埋分析業主就不同選項嘅意願。初步觀察，有絕大部分業主期望政府從速處理長遠住宿安排，有相當高嘅比例業主表示會考慮接受政府向佢哋收購業權，亦都有業主表示要考慮實質嘅收購價。而家工作組歸納咗以下要克服嘅問題同埋挑戰。第一，就不同家庭嘅需求分歧，點樣可以一致性處理？第二，對宏福苑嘅公共保險所涉及嘅責任、賠償不確定性同埋相關嘅法律問題。第三，所涉嘅業權責任同埋法律爭拗，會否帶嚟長時間延誤解決嘅風險等等。我已經指示工作組必須盡快研究各方面嘅可行方案，同埋佢哋所涉及嘅法律問題，去徵詢律政司嘅意見，盡早落實安排。我明白呢段時期對每一位宏福苑嘅居民嚟講都係不容易，政府會馬不停蹄，盡早敲定方案，讓受影響嘅居民可以作出最適合嘅選擇，協助佢哋早日重建家園，早日重回安定嘅生活。就巴拿馬最高法院所指，巴拿馬港口公司同巴拿馬政府簽署續約經營兩個巴拿馬港口違憲，特區政府係表示強烈不滿嘅。特區政府嘅態度係清晰嘅，反對任何外國政府喺國際經貿關係中使用脅迫、施壓或者其他不合理嘅政治手段。商務及經濟發展局已經喺上星期召見咗巴拿馬駐港總領事，表達對裁決嘅強烈不滿，認為巴拿馬對合法經貿關係嘅出爾反爾，破壞咗巴拿馬嘅信用，將對當地嘅營商環境同埋經濟發展造成深遠嘅損害，並嚴重破壞國際貿易規則。特區政府敦促巴拿馬政府尊重合約精神，為當地依法營運嘅企業提供公平公正嘅營商環境，確保企業嘅合法權益不受干預。而香港企業喺巴拿馬經營同埋投資，應該獲得公平合理嘅待遇同埋保障。外交部亦都已經清晰表明，中方將採取一切必要措施，堅決維護中方企業正當合法權益。特區政府會全面支持同埋配合國家所採取嘅措施。我相信今次嘅事件已經損害投資者對巴拿馬當地嘅營商環境信心，會審視 現在同埋未來喺當地嘅投資。希望巴拿馬當局認真保障合法精神，認真保障企業嘅合法利益。多謝。
好，下條提問。右手邊第二行啡色衫男記者，唔該。
Good morning, Mr. Chief Executive. Two questions from HoyTV News. So the first question is, after Jimmy Lai's sentencing, you described him as having committed numerous heinous crimes, and his evil deeds were beyond measure for the 20-year imprisonment. Do you think the sentence reflects his culpability? Will the authorities appeal the sentence to the judiciary? What are your views on the perspectives of European and American countries regarding the case? And the second question is, the government has issued a questionnaire to Wangfu Court residents on the rehousing scheme for more than a month. Will you commit to having a more optimized scheme before Lunar New Year so that residents can celebrate the New Year with peace of mind? And additionally, the government's proposed scheme may involve the use of public funds. Will you instruct the Financial Secretary to reserve funding for Wangfu Court rehousing in the budget to be announced at the end of this month? Thank you.
Jimmy Lai, who has betrayed the country and Hong Kong, has been sentenced to 20 years imprisonment, a heavy punishment that sends a solemn warning against malicious plots of collusion with external elements and endangering national security. Lai has committed numerous heinous crimes, and his evil deeds were beyond measure. The heavy sentence of 20 years imposed on him manifests that the rule of law is upheld and justice is done. Lai had long used Apple Daily to poison the minds of the people of Hong Kong by inciting hatred, distorting facts, deliberately stirring up social antagonism, and glorifying violence. He has openly begged for external forces to impose sanctions against China and the Hong Kong SAR, sacrificing the well-being of the people of China and Hong Kong. He caused damage to the interests of the country and the Hong Kong SAR. His conviction is supported by overwhelming evidence, and he deserves the punishment after all the harm that he has done. The court pointed out clearly in its verdict handed down earlier that Lai was the mastermind of the case. He had manipulated and exploited Apple Daily to poison society and colluded with external forces to back for sanctions and hostile activities against China and Hong Kong SAR. Lai's malicious plot spanned across both the periods before and after the promulgation of the Hong Kong National Security Law. His intent was to collude with external forces to harm the interests of China and Hong Kong SAR, as well as those of the people. He has shamelessly acted as a pawn of external forces to endanger national security. The court has already handed down heavy sentences for Lai and the other defendants in accordance with the law, manifesting that the rule of law is upheld and justice is done. That said, Hong Kong as a whole has already paid a heavy price. Poisoned by Lai and Apple Daily under his control, some of our citizens, especially young people, have been misled to break the law and become radical and violent. During the period of black violence, they committed acts of vandalism on public facilities. Not only did they storm the buildings of the Hong Kong SR government, the Legislative Council, and offices of the central government in Hong Kong, they also threw petrol bombs, committed arson, and even set people on fire. Furthermore, some young people smuggled real guns, made bombs, and make plans for terrorist activities. It was fortunate that the police have promptly cracked down on these plots and prevented mass casualties. However, many young people who have been incited to commit crimes eventually ended up in prison. As of the end of last year, more than 2,400 individuals have to face legal consequences for unlawful acts during the period of black violence. It is plain to see that the evil deeds committed by Lai and his syndicate were beyond measure. Hong Kong, as our government, has completed the local legislation on Article 23 of the Basic Law and enacted the Safeguarding National Security Ordinance. The Hong Kong National Security Law and the Safeguarding National Security Ordinance are complementary to each other to establish the legal protection for safeguarding national security. They also protect the legitimate rights and freedoms of the people of Hong Kong, and the Hong Kong SAR will do all its best to prevent, suppress, and punish acts and activities that endanger national security and fulfilling its rights, and fulfilling this responsibility of the most righteousness. Since we took action against a lot of syndicates who were involved in crimes related to endangering national security, Western countries and also politicians and organizations have been bad-mouthing Hong Kong's righteous action to protect national security. They are doing this, of course, for their political agenda. A lot try to cause trouble in Hong Kong so as to cause trouble to our country, China. Thanks to the Hong Kong National Security Law and Safeguarding Hong Kong Security Ordinance, we now have the tools to take action against all these illegal activities and acts. We will resolutely fulfill our duty to safeguard national security despite all the political attempts that try to smear our righteous action of safeguarding national security. They all do this for obvious reasons. Some of the people we are taking action against are their pawns, are their representatives, are under their influence to endanger Hong Kong's and our country's national security. It will be against their interests that we successfully neutralize their attempts. So these attacks, I expect, will continue because this is something they will not stop in order to ensure that their own national security interests override others. Certainly, I will not allow that to happen. Regarding sentence, the DOJ and the police will study in detail the judgment and the reasons and consider it fully. Regarding went for court, okay. I attach great interest and importance to the long-term accommodation arrangements for residents of Wangfu Court, and the government has been continuing to provide suitable assistance to the affected families. Well, the issues that the government has to resolve are really complicated because each household has its own circumstances and needs. and they are also very diverse in opinions in society. The government must carefully consider and deal with the various views and take into account some very practical issues, such as the appropriate use of public resources, the allocation of public funds, the distribution of housing resources, and the relevant legal ownership-related responsibilities and challenges. The government has also need to properly manage the transitional arrangements of accommodation. Timely action is crucial, so the sooner we can make available the options for residents to choose, the better. The Task Force on Emergency Accommodation Arrangement, led by Deputy Financial Secretary, has been working incessantly to develop a concrete plan in the following directions. First, to consider the wishes of the affected families while ensuring the efficient use of resources and balancing empathy, reason, and law. Second, to provide multiple options to affected families, including home ownership scheme and green phone subsidized home ownership scheme flats, as well as Hong Kong Housing Society units. And also third, to offer accommodation arrangements either within Tai Po or across different districts. Through the One Social Worker, One Household service, the task force collected preliminary preferences from affected flat owners. Currently, responses from them have largely been received. The task force is working intensively to compile and analyze flat owners' preferences regarding different options. Initial observations indicate that the vast majority of owners hope the government will expedite the handling of long-term rehousing work. A significant proportion of flat owners have expressed willingness to consider the government's acquisition of their ownership rights. Some flat owners have indicated that they need to look at the actual acquisition price. The task force is currently working hard to overcome some of the following issues which poses difficulties and challenges. First, how to handle the differing needs of various families in a consistent manner. Second, issues regarding liability, compensation uncertainty, and relevant legal matters concerning the public insurance of wrongful court. Third, whether ownership-related responsibility and legal disputes will pose risks of prolonged delays in resolution. I have instructed the task force to promptly study the feasibility of various options and the legal issues, seek advice from the Department of Justice, and propose arrangements as soon as possible. I understand this is no easy time for families of wrongful court. The government will work tirelessly to finalize the plan as soon as possible, enable affected families to make the most suitable choices, and assist them in rebuilding their homes and resuming their normal lives as quickly as possible. Regarding our arrangements, of course, we may have to use some public funding. The government will prudently make assessments and make appropriate arrangements to ensure that public funds are used effectively, striking a balance between the needs of the residents and the reasonable use of public resources. Thank you.
好，最後一條提問，右手邊第二行側邊個黑色嘅衫嘅男記者，唔該。
您好，新華社記者提問。 “十五五”规划纲要预计将在即将召开的全国两会上正式发布。特区政府此前也多次强调会主动对接“十五五”规划。请问您，香港将如何主动跟进“十五五”规划？有无具体的时间表？以及春节假期是内地居民出境旅游的高峰期，而香港是热门的旅行目的地。请问您，特区政府为迎接即将到来的内地春节旅客安排了什么活动？做出了哪些安排？在推动文体旅协同发展和盛事经济的背景下，今年香港将推出哪些重点盛事，以吸引更多旅客访港？谢谢。
今年是国家“十五五”规划的开局之年，我们会全面主动、积极对接国家“十五五”规划，为香港开创新局，提升竞争力，进一步发展经济，改善民生，把握重大机遇。我会从3个范畴跟大家说一说我的看法。第一，为何要对接？国家的5年规划作为治港理政的显著制度优势，已被国际社会广泛认同。国家正通过“十五五”规划继续推动发展经济生产力，推动高质量发展，既优化提升传统产业，同时培育壮大新型产业和未来产业，推动科技创新和产业创新深度融合。香港当下面对的经济转型期，劳动力技能需求变化、国际竞争加剧、地缘风险上升等挑战，融入国家发展大局可带来新空间、新动能。香港如能与国家中长期规划同频共振，发挥香港背靠祖国、联通世界的独特优势和重要作用，就能在各领域开拓新的发展机遇，进一步发展经济，改善民生。第二，要对接什么？我们会从5个重点方面对接。第一，巩固提升香港国际金融中心，与国家建设金融强国战略对接。第二，巩固提升香港国际航运中心，对接国家建设交通强国战略，深化与粤港澳大湾区港口联动合作。第三，巩固提升香港国际贸易中心，对接国家建设强大国内市场和贸易强国战略，发挥好引进来走出去的角色。第四，建设香港国际创新科技中心，与国家加快高水平科技激励自强战略对接。第五，香港打造国际高端人才集聚高地，对接国家教育强国、科技强国、人才强国的战略部署。当然，这些都是我点出来的例子而已，还有其他领域。第三，是香港如何对接。香港特区将制定5年发展规划，构建系统性的政策框架，对重点发